Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to use the Python programming language and the pygame library to make a simple snake game. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so we're here inside of VS Code. First thing we want to do is to install pygame. And to do that, all we have to do is type py-m pip install pygame-ce. So as you can see, I already have pygame installed. That's why it says requirement already satisfied. So you don't, in your case, it's probably going to say that you don't already have it installed. But yeah, once you run this command, you'll have pygame installed. So don't worry about that. Now do import pygame. Create a new window by doing pygame or window equals pygame.display.set mode. And here, we're going to use a Python tuple, which is basically just a way to store multiple values in one value. We're going to use that to store a width and a height for a window. In this case, let's make it 800 pixels wide by 800 pixels high. So wide, high. 800 wide, 800 high. That makes sense. I hope. I hope it makes sense. If you guys have any questions or anything, just let me know in the comments or DM me on Discord. My Discord will be in the description below, okay? So now what you can do is create a variable called done, set that to false initially. We're going to do while not done, and basically this is our game loop. As long as done is false, our game is going to keep running, and when done is true, then our game is going to exit and stop running. So now what we can do is use the event system for pygame to check if we close the window. And all you have to do for that is do for event in pygame event.get. So we're going to check if the event is equal to the quit event by using this event.type value. Basically, if it is the quit event, that means we press the X button on the window. Because you see in Windows, like for example in my VS Code window, there's like this little X button here. You see when I hover over it, it becomes red. That's how you close Windows, right? That's how it works in all three major operating systems, in Windows, Mac, and Linux. So what pygame allows us to do is it lets us find this quit event and see if the user pressed the X button on the window. Okay, so if the user pressed that button, we're going to set done to true. And we're going to update the display by using pygame.display.flip. This is just going to make sure that whatever we do to the window is actually going to be updated and reflected on the screen. So next thing we want to do is we want to clear the window. And the way we're going to do that is just by using window.fill. And all that's going to do is clear the frame before we draw anything. Because if you draw something but you don't clear the window, then you're still going to see everything you drew last frame. And you don't want that, right? Because that would be kind of strange if you could see everything that was already there. Okay. So now what you want to do is run the program to make sure everything works. So I'm just going to do py main.py. Wonderful. So now we have the pygame window right here. And what we want to do is, first of all, let's move it around, see if everything's working. As you can see, it doesn't actually have a title yet, but we can add that later if needed. So if we press the quit button, this X button right here, what should happen is that it should just exit without giving us an error. So let's make sure that works. Wonderful. So our window successfully exited without an error. Okay, great. So now let's get to the actual snake part of the game, where we actually implement the snake game. So first of all, what you want to do is you want to have a list of snake parts. So let's call that snake parts, and we're going to make that an empty, or not an empty list. We're going to have some snake parts assigned at the beginning. So basically, you know how in Snake, you already have some like, snake parts already there. The snake is already there, right? It's maybe three long. It's not very long, but it's like already initialized. So that's what we want to do. So we're going to, first of all, we're going to decide how big the grid is for our snake game. So since our window's 800 by 800, we can make the cell size 10. And that is kind of small, but it doesn't matter for now. So the cell size is 10, which means if we have 800 by 800 window and the cell size is 10, that means we have 80 cells in our window on the horizontal axis and on the vertical axis. So I'm just going to write that in a comment. 800 wide window, 80. I can't spell today. Or write. Okay, great. Now we have that. So let's make it so the snake head is in the center of the window. So 40, 40. And we're going to have, so the second part of the snake is at 41, 40, and then the third could be at 42, 40. So that's our snake parts list. So now what we want to do is have a snake direction. And for now, this can just be left. It can just be a string containing the value left. So now that we have that, let's actually draw our screen, or draw our snake to the window. So we're going to do, for part, in snake parts, we're going to say pygame.draw.rect. And we're going to draw to our window, which is why you see there's this surface argument right here. We have to put the window variable instead of our surface argument. So now we're going to put the color of the snake. So let's just make it like green. So 0, 200, 0. That's just RGB. So, 200 green. So it's, yeah, green. Now what we're going to do is use pygame.rect part 0, part 1. And it's very important that we multiply this by the cell size. So, because otherwise, it's not going to be aligned to the grid. So, what we have to do is do part 0 times cell size and part 1. Oh, times cell size. I forgot that. Okay. Now we can just put cell size here and cell size here. So now what we have is a simple snake that's drawing to the screen. So yeah, wonderful. Now you can see we have the snake drawn to the screen. The next thing we have to do is actually make it so the snake moves. And this part is kind of complicated, but I'm going to try my best to explain it in a way that's very simple. Oh my god, I got a voice crack. Anyways. Hate voice cracks. Next video I make, I'm gonna go on a rant about how much I hate voice cracks. Okay, where was I? Oh yes, we have to make the snake move. So I'm going to start by making a tick variable, which is just going to, the reason we're having this tick variable is because we don't want the snake to move every single frame. We want the snake to move maybe like 10 times a second. It doesn't have to, it shouldn't be too fast. So we also want to create a clock using pygame.time.clock. And we're going to have delta time equals clock.tick 60 divided by 1000. Okay, you don't have to worry about what this does so far. All you have to know is delta time is just this important value that we have to scale all of our updating stuff by. Basically, delta time just means the time since the previous frame. And that's useful when you have to make a timer, for example. So in this case, we have to make tick go up every frame. So we're going to do tick plus equals delta time. This is basically going to be a stopwatch or a timer or something. So we're going to have if tick is bigger than 0.1. So if tick, it has reached the value 0.1. So every 0.1 seconds, every 1/10 of a second, we're going to move our snake. So let's do that. First of all, we have to decide, we have to see which direction the snake is facing. So if snake is facing left, then the new head for the snake, because we have to move the head and move everything else towards it. So that's the algorithm for snake. So let's make initialize new head to none at the beginning. And we're going to set new head to snake parts like this. We're going to use this tuple, and we're going to take snake part 0 and subtract it, and subtract 1 from it, and that's basically just going to move it left. And we're going to copy that for every single other direction. So for right, what we're going to do is we're going to do +1. For up, what we're going to do is we're going to do -1, but on the y-axis. For down, what we're going to do is do +1, because we're going down on the y-axis, so positive. So in Pygame, how it works is you have the screen, right? And the top left corner of the screen, so where my mouse is right now, the top left corner of the screen is 0, 0, and 100, 0. So basically, if the first number of that pair of numbers, 0, 0, if the first number goes higher, then you're going to the right. But if the first number, if the second number, goes higher, then you go down. I'll explain that more in depth, possibly in a future video, so you can understand how the Pygame coordinate system works. But for now, that's not important. Just know that 0, 0 is top left. And the higher the first number gets, the higher right you go. The higher the second number gets, the farther down you go. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to use snakeparts.insert the new head. So if we run the program, you'll see what happens. Oh, there's an error here. What's the error? Oh, I see. Yeah. So we have to actually get the head of the snake. So I think the best way to do that would be to use a variable here, snake parts 0, and we're going to put head instead of snake parts. What this basically means is we're taking the first element of snake parts, which as you can see is a tuple, and then we're taking the elements from that tuple, as you can see here. So now let's run this and see what happens. Okay, so you see something's wrong, right? So our snake isn't supposed to grow like that, like a rubber band or something. What's actually supposed to happen is the last part of the snake is actually supposed to be deleted each time. And the way we do that is by using this del keyword, snake parts, -1. So now we have our snake moving left. Wonderful. So if we set our snake direction to up, then you can see our snake moves up. Let me just replay that so you can see again. Yeah, so you see our snake moves up. If we set it down, it'll move down. Okay, now we want to make it so you can actually change the direction of the snake using your arrow keys. So we're going to use the event system for that. So we're going to type if event.type equals pygame.keyDown. If event.key equals pygame.keyLeft. And then we're going to repeat that for every other key combination. Okay, great. So now we have all of these key if statements here. So if we press the left button, we have to set the snake direction to left. If we press the right button, we have to set the snake direction to right. If we press the up button, we have to set the snake direction to up. If we press the down button, we have to set the snake direction to down. Okay, so now let's see what happens. Okay, great. So what's basically happening here is I'm pressing the arrow keys on my keyboard, and every time I press them, the snake moves. But there is one tiny issue here. If I'm moving left, for example, and I press the right button, the snake goes right. And that sounds like it should make sense, but it actually doesn't make sense. Because what's basically happening is the snake is moving through itself. And if that happens, the snake should die. But we don't want you to be able to just do that, right? We need to make it so you can only move in a direction as long as it's not the opposite direction of where you're already facing. So if I'm moving right, you want to be able to move up, down, or just keep going right. we don't want to be able to move left if we're already moving right, because that would involve like doing a 360 degree or a 180 degree turn, right? You can't do a 180 degree turn in Snake. Okay, so let's implement that. So this should be easy. So all we have to check if Snake direction is not equal to right. As long as the Snake direction is not equal to the opposite of what we're setting it to, then it should work. Alright, so let's see if that works. Okay, so we can still move normally, but if I press down while moving up, as you can see, nothing happens. If I'm moving down and I press up, I'm pressing up, but nothing's happening. Okay. So now that we implemented that system and it's working fine, next thing we want to do is implement food. So in this Snake game, we're going to just have food that randomly moves whenever we eat it. And most Snake games have a system where if you go left or down or up or whatever, if you move out of bounds, you kind of flip around to the other side. But we're not going to do that. We're going to make it so if you reach out of bounds, you're just going to die. So the game's going to be over, basically. So how we're going to do that? Let's actually start with food. That should be slightly easier. So we're going to import the random module. Not uppercase, lowercase, random. We're going to have the food position equals to a random tuple, random randant, 39. Or no, actually I said it wrong. Not 39, 79. Because 80 is our maximum position. And since randant is inclusive, it's not exclusive like most Python or range functions are, we have to put 79 instead of 80. So now we have the food position. So yeah, I'm going to draw. Actually, I can just copy and paste this code. So I'm going to draw the food, and let's draw it as red. So I'm going to put food position right here. And now, as you can see, we have our food in this place right here. The only issue here, though, is if we try to eat our food, you see nothing happens. We just go directly through it. That's not supposed to happen. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually make it so you can eat the food. And that should be really simple. We just have to check if the new head, which means the new position of the snake head, we have to make sure that it doesn't intersect with the food. And if it does, then that means we eat the food. So if we eat the food, what we have to do is, first of all, change the food position to a random position. So I'm just going to copy this line. I'm going to paste it here. And I'm going to make it so you don't actually delete the snake, the last part of the snake, unless you ate the food. Or sorry, unless you didn't eat the food. So basically, if you eat the food, we're not going to delete the last part of the snake. And the reason we do that is so if we eat the food, the snake actually grows by 1 unit. So let's test if that works. Great. So the food went to a random position, and the snake grew by 1 unit. So now, we basically have the core gameplay loop of our snake game. But there's one thing that's still missing. It's that we can't actually die yet. So look what happens if I go out of bounds. You can literally just play the snake game out of bounds, and that's not supposed to happen. So we need to implement it so that when you go out of bounds, the snake actually dies, and the game is over. Ugh, God. I hate being sick. 1 second. Ah. Okay, anyway. what do we have to do? We have to implement a system that checks if the snake is out of bounds. So let's check that. So the way we're going to check that is we're going to check is new head, is the x coordinate smaller than 0 or bigger than 79. So this is basically just going to check if the x coordinate is out of bounds. Now, we're also going to do the same thing for the y coordinate. So if the snake head is out of bounds, we're going to set done to true. Now what happens is whenever we go out of bounds, the snake game is basically just going to exit. Yeah, so we died, the snake game exited, the world's gonna end. So now what we can do is implement a system so that if we hit ourselves, it's also going to exit. So look what happens if you walk into yourself. So I'm just gonna eat some food so I can grow the snake enough so I can actually demonstrate it. Let me just make sure it works. Okay, so look what happens. I just went through myself. Yeah, that's not supposed to happen. What we have to implement is a system that checks if the head of the snake is overlapping with the rest of the snake. Okay, so let's do that. So to do that, all we have to do is check is the new, or actually we need to also, actually never mind, we don't. So we can check is the new head inside of snake parts like this. So the reason we do this is because if we do without the slicing operator right here, we're basically checking is the head inside of the snake in general. And of course the head is inside of the snake. The head is literally part of the snake. But we need to check if it's inside of the body of the snake. So we're just going to use the slicing syntax. So we're going to set done to true. So let's test if that works. Okay, so moment of truth. I'm going to run into myself and see if everything works correctly. Wonderful! It worked! So now the snake game actually has a game over system. It basically exits whenever you die. So next thing we're going to do is add a scoring mechanism. So all we're going to do is keep track of the score and render it to the screen. So let's put our score in a variable score equals 0 at the beginning. Then we're going to set score to every time we eat the food, we're going to set the score to a higher value. Then what we're going to do is actually draw the score to the screen in the form of text. And the way we do that is first by having Arial font. We're basically going to use Pygame's text rendering system. We're going to use sysfont because I don't want to get a font file, so we're just going to use Arial for this. Arial is pretty much installed on every system, so there's a high chance you already have it. So what we can do is type the font size. So let's just do 26. So I'll do Arial font. And then over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to render it. So render text equals font render. And we're going to use this format string syntax. Basically what this means is it's going to insert the score variable into this string. Like that. So we can disable anti-aliasing because I don't really like it, but you can enable it if you like it. So let's make the text white so it works better and contrasts better with the black background. And let's do none. Now what we can do is draw it to the screen. So we can do window.blit because the rendered text is a surface. As you can see here, it's returning a surface. So we want to draw an image onto a different image. So the way we do that is by using this, and then we're just going to use the coordinates, let's say 50-50, and let's see if everything works. Oh, nothing worked. Okay. Oh, I know why it didn't work. Okay. So we have to actually do pygame.init, because as you can see, font system is not initialized. We have to initialize pygame. Okay. So now we have the score variable drawing to the screen, right? So everything should be working correctly. So yeah, oh, I suck at Snake. Okay, I missed that. Alright, yeah. So let me just playtest the Snake game and see if everything works. If you have any questions or if something's not working or you're getting an error or something like that, just paste your code in the comments below and I'll try my best to help you fix the error. Okay, wonderful. So our Snake game seems to be working. Yeah. So we can get the food. And I crashed into myself, so I died. So yeah, that's how to implement Snake in Pygame. Thanks so much for listening. Join my Discord server below if you feel like it. If you want, please subscribe if this video actually helped you. It would help me out a ton because this video took me like 2 hours to make because my recording setup kept causing issues. But anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.